Welcome, everybody, to our weekly Course in Miracles study group. This is Corinne, and let's begin our call tonight by coming together to that place within that we all share. So just pausing, finding a comfortable position, and turning awareness within. And even if the mind feels really busy and like that proverbial monkey mind, if it's all over the place, just trusting that beneath that is love. And it's this love within that we're willing to turn to now. All we need is willingness. And that's all we need to be concerned about is our willingness. It can be helpful to place one hand on your heart, and just to help connect yourself to this heart center, dropping out of the head and into being. In this holy instant we give to you. Be you in charge, for we would follow you, certain that your direction gives us peace. If we need a word, a thought, or a tranquil open mind, these are the gifts that the Holy Spirit gives. And we place the Holy Spirit in charge by our request. And taking a nice mindful breath in and out. And coming together to our perception of this time and place. All right. So
that was beautiful. That was beautiful, Corinne.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Thank you for joining me there. Let's dive into our reading, and I actually feel moved. I didn't plan on this, but I feel prompted to just reread the first few paragraphs of this section that we began last week. So we're on page 362 of the Sparkle edition. The subheading is The Holy Instant and the Laws of God. If you have the original edition by Course in Miracles Society, it is Chapter 15, Part 7. It's also called The Holy Instant and the Laws of God. And if you have the Foundation for Inner Peace edition, it's Chapter 15, Part 6, Paragraph number 3. The sentence that we're starting with is, all separation vanishes as holiness is shared. All right, we ready to roll?
Yep.
I'm going to read actually the first 4 paragraphs. So we read the first 3 already last week, but I feel prompted to reread them, so I'll end at the 4th paragraph. All separation vanishes as holiness is shared. For holiness is power, and by sharing it, it gains in strength. If you seek for satisfaction in gratifying your needs as you perceive them, you must believe that strength comes from another, and what you gain, he loses. Someone must always lose if you perceive yourself as weak. Yet there is another interpretation of relationships which transcends the concept of loss of power completely. You do not find it difficult to believe that when another calls on God for love, your call remains as strong. Nor do you think that, by God's answer to him, your hope of answer is diminished. On the contrary, you are far more inclined to regard his success as witness to the possibility of yours. That is because you recognize, however dimly, that God is an idea, and so your faith in him is strengthened by sharing. What you find difficult to accept is the fact that, like your Father, you are an idea. And like him, you can give yourself completely, wholly without loss, and only with gain. Herein lies peace, for here there is no conflict. In the world of scarcity, love has no meaning, and peace is impossible. For gain and loss are both accepted, and so no one is aware that perfect love is in him. In the holy instant, you recognize the idea of love in you, and unite this idea with the mind that thought it and could not relinquish it. By holding it within itself, there was no loss. The holy instant thus becomes a lesson in how to hold all of your brothers in your mind, experiencing not loss, but completion. From this, it follows you can only give. And this is love, for this alone is natural under the laws of God. In the holy instant, the laws of God prevail, and only they have meaning. The laws of this world cease to hold any meaning at all. When the Son of God accepts the laws of God as what he gladly wills, it is impossible that he be bound or limited in any way. In this instant, he is as free as God would have him be. For the instant he refuses to be bound, he is not bound. Okay, so we're going to pause there. All right, so this section is just beautiful. I know I highlighted this last week, but just really struck with this idea that just like God is an idea, we are an idea as well. We are this pure thought of love, and because we've accepted scarcity as meaningful in our mind, one can gain, one can lose. Guilt, fear, because we've accepted this tiny mad idea that we're separate from our source, we no longer are aware that perfect love is in us. And it's through experiencing the holy instant that this veil of time gets lifted and we unite with the mind that thought us, that thought love, that we are part of. So I'm wondering what came up for anybody, insights, examples, questions with what we read so far. Let's read the next paragraph. In the holy instant, nothing happens that has not always been. Only the veil that has been drawn across reality is lifted. Nothing has changed. Yet the awareness of changelessness comes swiftly as the veil of time is pushed aside. No one who has not yet experienced the lifting of the veil and felt himself drawn irresistibly into the light behind it can have faith in love without fear. Yet the Holy Spirit gives you this faith because he offered it to me and I accepted it. Fear not, the holy instant will be denied you, for I denied it not. And through me the Holy Spirit gave it unto you, as you will give it. Let no need that you perceive obscure your need of this. For in the holy instant you will recognize the only need the aspects of the Son of God share equally, and by this recognition you will join with me in offering what is needed. I love how it speaks to the lifting of the veil, because I think, Brian, actually, you brought up fog. I think you were referring to it as fog, right? I think I was saying
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's just this thin veil, just this fog that lifts up when we meet the conditions of holding on to nothing, of letting go of thinking that we know the way things need to be. As we relinquish our plans, as we've previously read, we have these glimpses, and so that's the veil gets thinner and thinner. It lifts up. It's that smoke or that fog that just temporarily lifts. And I'm actually reminded. I think I shared this probably a couple months ago. It was sometime over the summer, where it was really helpful for me, and it was a movie called, had Scarlett Johansson in it, and it was a one-word name movie. It was a name, her first name as the character, and she was using more and more parts of her brain in the movie. Is this ringing a bell for anyone?
Lucy. It's called Lucy.
Lucy. Thank you. It's called Lucy. It was that movie. I don't know if I shared this detail, but I realized after the fact I had an experience that lasted for quite a while of having this like real palpable sense that my life did not begin when Corinne began, and my life is not going to be over when I'm no longer identified as Corinne. It was this sort of expansive awareness. And it was funny because, give anything to the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit will use it on behalf of our awakening. There I was watching Lucy, and this idea of your awareness, she's using more and more parts of her brain in the film. The idea of just this expanded awareness, which resonated with me because of the near-death experience books that we've previously talked about on the calls, particularly not Eben Alexander's book. It was the other one by the woman who was like on her deathbed from cancer and had this, near-death experience and just healed very rapidly.
Oh, Anita Moorjani.
Anita Moorjani, thank you. Where she described it as like, you're in this giant warehouse. We have these tiny little flashlights usually, and then suddenly someone turns on the lights. That was like what she experienced. It was sort of that experience that the movie reminded me of, which sort of led into this feeling of having this sense of just this expanded awareness that, life doesn't begin at birth and it does not end at what we call or what we, think of as death. So I'm forgetting now how I got on this topic. There was something that we read that prompted this, but I'm just looking.
We were talking about how the veil was lifted.
Oh, thank you, Deidre. Thank you. That was it. To come back to that it was if the veil got thinner, and I had more of an actual sense of what life really is, and that it's not limited to what our body's eyes see or what it hears or thinks or senses in this world. So it was pretty cool. Thank you for connecting that dot, Deidre. It's like, why did I start talking about this?
No problem.
So thoughts, questions, comments, what's coming up for folks so far?
Go ahead, Brian.
No, you go.
Hello? No, I insist.
Okay,
Hello?
just the top.
How about Paula first, then Brian, then Megan, then Meg, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Just,
go ahead, Paula.
This lifting of the veil. I had an experience. I used to smoke, and I had an awful hard time giving it up. And somebody said to me, I've been in Course in Miracles groups for a long time, and somebody said to me, why don't you, every time you light up a cigarette, turn it over to the Holy Spirit? And I just thought, wow, that is such a good idea. And so I started doing that. And I was at work one day, and we're talking about smoke, too. That's what made me think about this. I was at work one day, and, I was in this process, and we all smoked at work, too, and I stopped and tried to let it go and would hand it over to the Holy Spirit. And I literally had an experience of a veil dropping. And I'm in a room with a lot of people, and I'm thinking, did anybody else notice this? I didn't say anything to anybody, but it was a veil dropping. It was so every time I read this, I've read this before in here, it always makes me think of that experience. And it was an experience. And I, that really did work for me, turning that over to the Holy Spirit, because within a very short period of time, I wound up getting bronchitis, and I couldn't smoke. I couldn't have any. And by the time I got over the bronchitis, it was as if I had never smoked. It was just totally taken. And I've never had any desire whatsoever to do that again. Yeah, that's really cool, Paula. And, you reminded me just how with that veil dropping, just sort of falling away, and how you said it was an experience. And
we can't share experiences through words. We can try to describe it as best we can, but it doesn't give, maybe it'll set up conditions for a person to have an experience, but it's different. And so going back to the paragraph that we just finished, that no one who has not yet experienced the lifting of the veil and felt himself drawn irresistibly into the light beyond it can have faith and love without fear. So it's these experiences that teach us that there's nothing to be afraid of, that slowly, we build up this trust that we don't need to be afraid, and we learn that's the gentleness that I often speak of about the Course, that it's these experiences that build our trust where the fear just, maybe for some it falls away entirely, but for me it's been a much more gradual letting go of that fear. And it's through those experiences that we have of the lifting of the veil, where we experience those miracles, we experience holy instants that speak to us, that build our trust. So thank you, Paula. Brian, you're next.
Yeah, that was beautiful what you were just saying, and it takes me back up a couple of paragraphs where in the world of scarcity, love has no meaning and peace is impossible. Mm-hmm. Somehow I'm riveted on that in the reading. Mm-hmm. It's just awesome.
It's where exactly? I'm trying to find it. I know we read it.
Herein lies peace.
Yeah, herein lies peace for you.
Got it. I found it.
Just keep going. And then in the world of scarcity, love has no meaning and peace is impossible. And like everyone else, we all face challenges. And the fear thing that you just mentioned, I seem to be coming back to that. But that sentence there is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Because how it goes on to say, when we've accepted both gain and loss, when we've accepted that, maybe, I have this spirit or this soul in me, and, there's also evil and hatred and all this other stuff. When we've accepted both of those ideas in our mind, we lose that awareness of perfect love in us. So it's again, this unlearning, this undoing of these ideas that we've accepted in our mind that are simply just removing those blocks that we've built to the awareness that perfect love is in us right now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's it.
It is it.
It is. Great.
And Meg, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to ask, what was the name of the book?
The Near-Death Experience by Anita Morjani?
Yes.
Does anybody remember it? It's totally escaping me.
I've got it.
Oh, Dying to be me.
Dying to be
that's
me.
It.
Thank you. That's it.
Well, I'm sorry. What was it?
Dying to be me.
Oh, Dying to be me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's a good one. I was in a used bookstore, which I get so excited when I find used bookstores. I'm always looking for old versions of A Course in Miracles when I go into them, but those types of bookstores are hard to find nowadays. And we happened to stumble across one, and I picked up a hard copy of Eben Alexander's book, and then I also got the one by the boy, the Heaven is for Real, I think. A movie was made of it, so I haven't read that yet.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, there's a new movie coming out about I can't call them near-death experiences anymore because of what I know. It's more like a near-truth experience.
Yeah. A real-life experience.
Yeah. It's called 60 Minutes in Heaven, I believe. And the trailers are just out for it now.
Oh,
so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for recommending.
Who's in it?
I didn't recognize any of the lead actors. I just was struck by the trailer and the subject matter, so
okay.
I don't know who's in the role.
I'll look for it. 60 minutes?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Looks really good.
Awesome. Very cool. Anything else coming up for anybody with what we've read so far?
For me, it's the paragraph that talks about in the holy instant the laws of God prevail and only they have meaning. The laws of the world cease to hold any meaning at all. when the Son of God accepts the laws of God as what he gladly wills, it is impossible that he be bound or limited. I just and then it emphasizes later in the paragraph that when we relinquish all our ideas about the world, we are not bound. And that really struck me because I think I've talked to you before, Corinne, that sometimes there's I occasionally have things come up around the lesson about the laws of God, and so because I've been such a rule follower in my personality, I get fearful sometimes when I'm not following laws. In fact, earlier in the week there was something that came up during my move that brought up a lot of fear, and I did completely slide down the staircase. I was afraid, and it was all centering around the laws of the world, and so I really got quiet, and I asked, I did an angel reading for myself, and I asked the angels, so what is it about these laws that is tripping me up? And I just got really, really quiet, and the message that I received was the laws that we know of them here, like, so laws about, good conduct and good behavior and taxes and rules and regulations and all of those things do not exist in the state of mind which we call heaven. So we can let go of our attachment, because really the attachment to those things are only strengthening the idea that we are these bodies. And it was really profound for me, and it helped me reach a level of calm about that I don't think I've ever quite experienced, because I've always been like this kind of you must do it correctly type person. And so there's been a couple of instances lately where my guidance has been, no, don't follow the laws of the world, which has brought up fear for me. But that whole experience was really quite beautiful. So
that's awesome, Deidre.
That is awesome. Thank you, Deidre.
Thank you.
I love just hearing your insights and the things that help you along the way, because it helps us all.
Thank you.
Wow. How about we read another paragraph? It is through us, right? Is that where we are? That's where we are. It is through us that peace will come. Join me in the idea of peace, for in ideas, minds can communicate. If you would give yourself as your Father gives his self, you will learn to understand selfhood. And therein is love's meaning understood. But remember that understanding is of the mind, and only of the mind. Knowledge is therefore of the mind, and its conditions are in the mind with it. If you were not only an idea and nothing else, you could not be in full communication with all that ever was. Yet as long as you prefer to be something else, or would attempt to be nothing else and something else together, the language of communication, which you know perfectly, you will not remember.
Oh, talk about this, please.
Yeah, well, again, all this is saying, in its sort of fancy way of wording it, is that we're not going to remember truth if we think that we are separate. As long as we believe that the separation happened, as long as we believe that we are these separate individuals, we're not going to remember truth, because we're putting a block up to what we know. Where it says earlier, Remember that understanding is of the mind and only of the mind. Knowledge is therefore of the mind, and its conditions are in the mind with it. This isn't the mind. This isn't the thinking, analyzing ego mind. Remember, it's always the ego that wants to understand. So when it says the understanding is of the mind, it's not talking about us figuring this out. It's talking about this knowing in the mind. And I'm actually wondering, sometimes in the Foundation for Inner Peace edition, some words might be edited differently. So if anybody who is following along with FIP notices anything different, by all means, feel free to share that. But it's this knowing that comes through the experience, like you talked about earlier, Paula. So if that knowing, that knowledge is of the mind, the conditions are in that mind with it. For us to meet those conditions, we have to be willing to relinquish this idea that we are these separate selves, that we are, these separate selves in bodies with personalities. So if we think we're anything other than what we actually are, we can't be in full communication with all that ever was. So in other words, as long as I think that I'm Corinne, I'm not going to be in full communication with all that ever was. What I'm learning is that I'm not Corinne. So I have this big addiction, you could say, to being Corinne, because this is my chosen identity in this world. And as I loosen my hold on that identity, I start to remember through these experiences that I start to have that full communication again. I start to have those glimpses, and I hope that was helpful. I hope that clarifies.
I think that's tremendous.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Corinne. And when it's talking about that we are ideas, that's also reinforcing that, right? It's the dropping of the concept.
Yeah. Think of all the ideas we hold about ourselves, right? Yeah. I'm good at this. I'm not so good at that. I like this. I don't like that. Those are all ideas, and every single one of them is a block to remembering who it is that we truly are. And it's okay to have preferences. We're identified with these separate selves in this plane of existence, and there's nothing to feel guilty about that. It's just that we can just be willing to give these ideas about ourselves to the Holy Spirit. We can be willing to see these ideas differently. So we don't have to feel guilty about it. We don't have to change it. We just have to have that tiny, tiny bit of willingness. Deidre, did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. Sometimes things bubble up and it's just like,
yeah, I understand.
It just seems that the five senses trip you up.
That's what they were made to do.
Yeah.
They are there to be that smoke screen, to be that veil, to be that giant distraction from the truth that lies beneath them. That's why they're there.
They can be, but then there's also the side, like as a medium and as an angel intuitive, there's also the side where you can use the senses of the body as a communication device. Once
we give the purpose of the senses and the purpose of the body to the Holy Spirit, that's when we're now using, because again, it says in the Course that the body is the means by which we return our awareness to truth, how we return our awareness to heaven. So the body is not all bad. We have to allow the purpose of it to be retranslated. So absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Deidre. That is super important. Go on, Brian.
Okay, there is that word selfhood in there. Okay?
Yes, I love that.
All right, now I just want to ask you a question because I know you've listened to John Kabat-Zinn, and he seems to like this word equanimity. And you know that equanimity, I had to check the definition of it because it has to do with having an even mind, psychological stability. And I'm wondering, is that a worthy goal? I mean, I think it is. But here in this discussion, in the paragraph with selfhood, it talks about love's meaning, being able to understand love. So is love the better goal rather than equanimity, if that's a mind state, like of peace?
In truth, they're synonymous. This is what's bubbling up in me, and if anybody else has anything coming up, please share it. We're conceptualizing those as different things, but love is pure peace. It's pure joy. It's pure equanimity. It's not, it's undisturbable. It's unshakable. And so I actually see those as being synonymous, ultimately.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that was my question, because I always hear that word, and I struggle with it sometimes. I'm like, what is he talking about?
You mean equanimity?
Yeah.
Right. Well, in my experience, and again, please anybody else chime in, what would be the equanimitous? I don't know what the version of that word is. What is the opposite of equanimity? I'll say it that way. Is what typically happens in my mind, right? It's all over the place. It's bouncing around from one thing to another. It's not stable. It's just the opposite of equanimity. As I am willing to find my real thoughts in my mind, because those are not my real, what I'm aware of typically are not my real thoughts. Of course, we've talked about this on the call before that, there's actually a lesson in the workbook that says where my real thoughts are in my mind, I would like to find them. So our real thoughts are deeper than this surface level thinking that is not equanimity. And beneath those thoughts, or above them, however you want to conceptualize it, is that constant that constant song of heaven, that constant love, that is that harmony, that is that equanimity, and the surface level thoughts are there. Just like the senses and the body were initially made to be blocks to that awareness, that's what that, turning mind is, so that equanimity, that love is what's beneath it. And I think many of us on the call have had experiences of that, of the mind really stilling down, even going, into the example that I just shared about that movie Lucy, because what precipitated that was an experience in meditation of having a very still mind. My mind just quieted down like it had not done in a long time, and that sort of precipitated that experience.
Beautiful.
So thank you, Brian, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that that word selfhood too. I have
Selfhood.
a little heart drawn next to it in that paragraph. It's with a capital S, selfhood.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything coming up so far?
Well, this one line, in the holy instant, and this is a few paragraphs back, in the holy instant, nothing happens that has not always been. And I know you've talked about that many times. I really, that baffles me.
So, you know how maybe you run into somebody that you haven't seen in a long time, and there's that like instant recognition, that familiarity, that connection that's there. When we have that holy instant, it's as if we have those glimpses of remembering, that glimpse of reconnection to a selfhood that we've forgotten about right now. It remains unchanged. It's still there. We've just allowed a veil to be drawn down, over our awareness. And so when that veil gets lifted, nothing is there that hasn't always been there, and we already know it. So that's why the ego sometimes musters up its, defenses as much as it can, because it knows if we had that recognition of what has always been, because we know it, it knows that we'd let go of it forever. We'd be done with playing we'd be done with playing with these blown up children's toys, as the Course says. And we leap back into heaven and be like, I am out of here for good. So because there's such because we know that it's always been there, that's why we have to work so hard to forget it, because it's always been there.
I think
so in the holy instant.
Go ahead.
What's that?
I think I get tripped up by the idea that it says nothing happens, but right away my mind.
New. It's nothing new that's going to happen. It's nothing unfamiliar it's happening. It's always been there.
So it's really talking about our essential self, the true
yes.
I am.
Yes, absolutely. That has always been.
And always
will
be.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank God.
Oh, hallelujah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Paula.
Yeah, the ego really does not want us to get that.
Nope.
But that's
matter.
Only
because
I'm going to get it.
Yes. But remember,
I already got it.
Yes, exactly. Remember, too, that the ego is just an idea in our mind that we don't want to go home. So rather than even saying, because we've talked about making the ego into a thing, that's why Deidre so beautifully calls it Taz, to kind of not make it, a thing or not even name it. All the ego is, just like God is an idea, and just like we are ideas, just like we have ideas in our mind of, what makes up this personality, the ego is just an idea. It's just that part of our mind that wants to stay separate from the rest. So it's nothing outside of us, and it's nothing to be afraid of, because it's just part of our own mind. And all we have to do, again, as we turn to spirit, the ego backlash that sometimes people get hooked into being afraid, it's going to happen. We're withdrawing our belief from that belief. We're not pumping, our belief into that idea, and so it just deflates. It can't harm us because we've chosen to align our mind with spirit. So did that help, Paula, with that sentence?
I think that's tremendously helpful.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Excuse me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's read the next paragraph, actually the last paragraph in this section. In the holy instant is God remembered, and the language of communication with all your brothers is remembered with him. For communication is remembered together, as is truth. There is no exclusion in the holy instant, because the past is gone, and with it goes the whole basis for exclusion. Without its source, exclusion vanishes. And this permits your source and that of all your brothers to replace it in your awareness. God and the power of God will take their rightful place in you, and you will experience the full communication of ideas with ideas. Through your ability to do this, you will learn what you must be, for you will begin to understand what your Creator is and what his creation is along with him. I don't know if I have any words. Actually, I do. I have the center of this paragraph underlined. There's no exclusion in the holy instant because the past is gone. So again, it's when we drop all of our ideas about the past, or at least have willingness to drop them. Again, we don't do it ourselves. We just have that willingness to drop them. And with dropping the past, drops the whole basis for exclusion. And when that idea of separation, let's say, aka exclusion, leaves the mind, that allows source to replace it in our awareness. I like how it says that.
That line we read last week, that God does not remember.
Yeah, I love that.
That has been with me all week. And I I've really had to, I've used it all week. Whenever I go into that drama-based stuff, you know, and it really helps to simplify things, because it's like, I don't need to remember this. God doesn't remember this. I don't need to remember this. I had kind of a unfortunate, an unusual situation happen on my way to work a few weeks ago. I saw a man lying in the street. I mean, he looked like he was dead. There was obviously something awful going on there. And the people who were there with him ran towards me and said, "Go back, go back, go back." So I literally turned the car around and got out of there. And I'm waiting to hear some sirens or something, because there were quite a few people there with him. And no, the police didn't come, and I just went on my way to work. But it kept creeping into my mind and bothering me, like, what was that all about? Well, then it came. I found out, because I read the local press, that it was a really nasty situation. And I started reading about it because I was so curious as to what was this about. And, you know, I wasn't sleeping well. It was really starting to disturb me. And I stopped watching the news and stopped reading the paper and started feeling better it took a couple of days. But the whole idea of it was so disturbing, and I kept thinking, God doesn't remember this. And it was so helpful to let it go and just let it be whatever it was. And actually, it turns out the man is in critical condition. He didn't die. But, my prayers have just been with him. But it's so helpful in those kind of situations, to remember that God doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And just let it be whatever it is.
Yeah. I also like, just to add to what you're saying, because I'm just thinking about, other situations that I found myself in. I always go back to thinking about Dr. E. Haleakala Hugh Len, the Ho'oponopono guy who, healed a whole psychiatric ward of people, not ever meeting them, but just simply because their problem was entering his awareness as like that client file, placed on his desk, because those ideas showed up in his mind. They were therefore his to clean. So with the Ho'oponopono path, the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, that was his method of cleaning these ideas from his mind. And as he cleaned these ideas from his mind, the individuals were healed. Just like, with A Course in Miracles, the prayer, take this from me and look upon it, judging it for me. Let me not see it as a sign of sin and death, nor use it for destruction. Because if we're looking with only the body's eyes, we will use it as a sign of sin and death and destruction. So then the prayer goes on, teach me how not to make of this an obstacle to peace, but let you use it for me to facilitate peace's coming. So it's the same, type of process where if it's showing up in our awareness, it's there in our mind to be cleaned, so to speak, by giving that idea of what we think we see to the Holy Spirit. Because as we know,
my God.
Like with the Course's definition of forgiveness, it's recognizing that what we thought another did to us never occurred. So it's an idea. It's an idea. It's something to, give to the Holy Spirit to be willing to see differently. So,
Corinne, that is so perfect. I just, like at night, when these ideas would come into my mind, I would just repeat, I choose the joy of God instead of pain, because it was painful to even think about it. And I would just repeat it until I go to sleep. And thank God for this. There's so many wonderful tools here.
Yeah.
Now, what you just said it's like a paragraph out of this book. Where is that?
That prayer, the take it from me and look upon it, judging it for me?
Yes.
I will get it to you by the end of the call. I can open up my
that's perfect.
And search for it. I can say, in the foundation, if you have the Foundation for Inner Peace book, it's the text, page 419. But I just have to find it in the
wait a minute, I got it right here.
So
page
good.
419. I'm going to write it down.
419 in the Foundation for Inner Peace edition.
Okay, great.
So, actually, I have the document open. Let me just search for it. Take this from me and see if it comes up. Perfect. In the Sparkle edition, it is on page 472. Okay,
I got it right here in the Foundation for Inner Peace.
Okay. Great.
Excellent.
And if anybody needs it in the original edition, let me know, and I can find that later.
Thank you.
I have it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So other things that are coming up for folks, insights, examples, questions, things in the paragraphs that stood out to you.
This is Carol. I just want to say that I am in such deep gratitude listening to everything tonight, experiencing it. It just feels such a gift.
I share that. I definitely feel that gratitude also. Healing is fun. This doesn't have to be awful. This doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't at all. And, it is experienced that way for a lot of people maybe initially. I know for me in the beginning, because it was anxiety that propelled me to find another way. It was quite painful. But now this is fun. Like when things... it's not always fun. I'm not painting a picture that everything's, always roses, but I feel like I have enough trust now that when shit starts hitting the fan or things start bubbling up, it's coming up because it's an opportunity for me to take it to the Holy Spirit. It's an opportunity for me to be willing to see it differently. And so getting to have the opportunity to see where I have fear blocks still in my own mind is actually a glorious thing, because guess where we're going? It goes back to that Course quote, would you not go through fear to love? Absolutely, I would. I've been, and I'm sure I'm still in, ways that I'm not even aware of. I will go through fear to love, because that's what I want. That's what we all want. And the parts of our mind that don't want it is what we're looking at with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
So you choose it.
Heaven is a decision I must make. Yes.
Actively
that's one of the lessons. This is a choice.
It's a sign of tremendous strength.
What's that, Brian? What about a tremendous strength?
Just that making that choice, it's just a sign of tremendous strength.
Yeah. And I feel like in my own life, I made the choice and things were still painful for quite a while. But so it's not that we have to make the choice perfectly, because again, that's why the Holy Spirit is here. Our willingness need not be complete because His is perfect. It's just a tiny bit that we need. Once we have made a choice ever so little, tiny mustard seed little, our awakening, our peace is guaranteed. We're just going through what we need to go through, but we're all going to make it. That's the awesome thing about this, is that our peace, our awakening is 100% guaranteed, because as the Course teaches, Jesus undid all this already. And when that choice was made, we were there with Him. The Course says that.
Something I find really helpful is that, when these things come up, Corinne, as you say, where the shit hits the fan, in those moments, I'm like, I don't know how to choose. So Holy Spirit, do it for me. I don't know how to choose. I don't know what way is in most alignment with the truth right now. It's like that bit about scarcity earlier, and how a mind that is in scarcity cannot know peace. You just can't. So when you've slid down that staircase, you don't know what love means because you're not in love. You're not in alignment with it. And I just find the more I'm able to say, I don't know how to choose. I don't even know how to begin, but here you go. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Deidre, for adding that. It's so important to remember that we don't know how to choose. We don't know anything. But there's something in us that does.
Yeah.
Something in us that's very reliable and very real.
Corinne, this is Angela.
Hi,
Angela. Hi, Angela.
Hi. And it was really nice. I have to say, I ran into Paula last night. I was out to dinner, and I was like, wow. So
I
that was really
felt the same
cool.
way. I was so happy to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
It's been since we were going to where we were all meeting as a group, and we physically were present. So that was really cool. But what's coming up a lot for me is, there's a couple of things, but as succinctly as I can say it, I thank you, Deidre, for what you had to just say, because a lot of the times I will just go around and say, I don't know what anything's for. I don't know this thing I am. Holy Spirit, I don't know. I don't even know. And I've said this a million times. I don't even know, because if you're any way related to me, it's no good. It's, so I still, there's a lot of struggling. But then what comes to me is that sense of saying, okay, well, choose for love. I mean, I've seen the ugly side of me, which the ugly side of me is the ego side of me. I'm stressed, and I think that all of this is real, and do it right, do it better, do it faster. If you're not good enough, and I'm like, wow, this absolutely makes no sense to me. That it's just I don't want that. That's not where I come from, and so I guess what I would say is I've been trying to. I know, Corinne, you had said something about bring it. I choose for love. Essentially, I think what scares me is that hopefully in time I'll be able to want to choose for love again and again, and I feel like I'm talking around in circles a little bit, but I guess when I think of this life and say, okay, life didn't begin at birth and life doesn't end at death, but I get scared because I think there's so much to do. There's so much to do. I'm like, oh my God, when is it ever going to be like, okay, there's time for rest. There's time for peace. There's time for joy. There's time for all of that. And, so in my head, I would just say there's the driver just saying, you're not doing enough. You're not good enough. You're not good. But on and on and on. And if I'm not sure of the Holy Spirit, then I notice I don't need to bring it to God, because I think, well, wait a second, I'm supposed to bring it to the Holy Spirit to get to God. So if you can, whatever, I'm gonna pipe down and just say, okay, that's where I'm at.
Thank you for sharing, Angela. And
you're welcome.
It's important to just be where you're at, to allow ourselves to be where we're at. And that voice of, like, I'm never doing enough, I got to, that always has a million things to do. And I know that part of my mind very well. And if there's a chance or if there's willingness to take some time for peace and some time for joy despite all the unfinished things, that's something that I've learned how to do for myself, is to just take downtime, to take some quiet time. That's why this 9-day silent retreat that I, did in August was so great. I had a million things happening, but right before I left and right after I returned, and yet to just leave it all unfinished and to say, this is my time that I'm going to go spend with Spirit and with myself, capital S, self.
Mm-hmm.
The to-do list is always going to be there, and so if it feels hard to sit still and to get quiet, go do something that you love. Go for a walk on the beach, or just whatever it may be. If it's sitting outside and you're feeling like I should be doing this, I should be doing that, set a timer. So give yourself 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I just did that today, where I sat on my hammock and set my timer for 10 minutes, and I said, I'm not going to think about getting anything done in this next 10 minutes, and if I do, I'm going to just bring my mind back to being right here in my lovely hammock. So
that's a great idea. You actually set a timer?
Yeah, I did today, because I knew that if I didn't, I was going to go into that, I should be getting this done, I should be getting that done. So,
oh my God, I never thought of that.
I gave myself 10 minutes to just allow myself to just be. Yeah. So that is just what came forward. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's what I felt moved to share. So.
No, it's really helpful, because interesting enough, the one thing I've been thinking about is somehow, some way saying, okay, to find a silent retreat, and just to say, okay, then that may be, and I'm inspired by what you have shared, what you have written, and so I put that out there. Writing about your silent retreat, and I put that out there because that inspires me, because I think, well, you know what, something's just calling me to say, maybe this is what you need to do. Maybe it'll only be 1 or 2 days. I don't know, but whatever. Start there. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela.
So now, Angela, it sounds like we both have the same ego. We do.
There's only one ego, and it's just an idea, so it's really nothing.
But I got the same ego. Love you. Be strong.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
It feels good to just be able to speak your truth and say, okay, this is what's coming up.
Yeah.
And when you, God forbid, you should try to explain it to somebody who doesn't understand this language.
Yeah.
They're like, it's like, don't even go there, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did that for just about 2 minutes last night, and I thought, oh, no. Oh, God, she looked at me like I had, never mind.
Funny. All right, everybody. Well, we're at the top of our time together, so thank you all so much for being here. I'm giving a big group hug.
Oh, group hug.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Have
Hug
a great
accepted.
week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, family.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Carla. Bye, Carla.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.